Hello, friends, and welcome to the Handyman Success Podcast. Our mission is to teach and inspire by sharing the stories and insights of our guests. Whether you're a prospective, new, or seasoned handyman business owner, you will learn practical business tips you can apply today and be inspired that you can reach your goals and create a better tomorrow. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Call, owner of Handyman Marketing Pros. We equip small, family-owned handyman businesses with modern websites and SEO to help grow their businesses online. I'm joined by my co-host, Alan Lee, who has built his handyman business to a point where it runs without him. He now teaches others, step by step, how to do the same thing through his Handyman Journey business coaching. You can learn more about our marketing and coaching services by scheduling a call with us on handymansuccess.net. So whether you're patching drywall, sitting in the office, or making your third run to Home Depot, we invite you to pull up a chair and sit with us on another episode of the Handyman Success Podcast. Today, we're joined by Cody Seibel with Seibel Handyman Services, actually upcoming to be Seibel Handyman and Remodel, but we'll dig into that. Cody, thanks so much for joining us, man. If you don't mind, give us a little snapshot of you, your business, where you're located. Just give the audience a little lay of the land here.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys, for having me on this morning. My name's Cody Seibel. I'm here in Lodi, California, which is about 30 miles south of the Sacramento here in the Central Valley. Typical guy, 3 kids, wife, family, really happy. Started my business August of 2022. So, yep, that was that.
Awesome. And Cody's one of our a guest with us today that actually started his handyman business after listening to our podcast.
Right.
And was just listening to our podcast as you're kind of ideating this thing and starting it. So that makes me and Alan, I think I can speak for Alan here that makes us feel really good, and we just feel so grateful that you had that experience. So that's really special for us. So what were you doing before you started your handyman business? Like, what prompted you to start it? Like, give us a little story of how you got things off the ground here.
Yeah, so probably about 10 years ago, I started into industrial maintenance. So I was an industrial maintenance technician, like pumps, motors, bearings, conveyors, whatnot, several wineries around here in Lodi. I worked at a really large one for several years and just kind of hopped around. Ended up working at AT&T, which is in construction, the line industry, like climbing poles and stuff like that. And that was like a term job, they called it. So it was always a plan that's going to end, and I'm going to go back to being an industrial maintenance technician. And I don't know, about a year or so into that, they had cut our overtime, and it's like, man, I was really banking on that overtime to pay some credit card debt off and stuff like that, And it's always been in the back of my head to start a business, but of course I never had any idea how to do it. And that fear just kind of grips you on, there's no way this is going to work, and all those negative thoughts creep in. And so I just kind of started diving into it, out of desperation for some side work, and I think I stumbled upon one of Alan's books on Amazon, and I had no idea who Alan Lee was or, anything. I just grabbed, this guy looks like he wrote a good book, and ordered the book and read it and seen he had some more. So I picked those up, and then I found the podcast, and I just kind of started diving into this thing, kind of got a superpower, I always called it. I have probably some type of ADD or something, so I can hyper focus on something, and that's what happened. Also have a little bit of background in politics, door-to-door canvassing and stuff like that. And so I'm really comfortable speaking to people, and it's not a fear to, if I'm passionate about something, I can say it from my heart, So, and it is all going to be part-time. It wasn't going to be anything, for a long time. I had it set in my head. I'm going to be doing $100,000 a year before I go full-time. And there was a different plan because we all got laid off a few months after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I had the choice. I'm thinking this business is nowhere near where it was or where it needs to be for me to go full-time, and kind of just sat down with my wife, who's been very supportive of me in this the whole time. And she said, just stick to doing it. I think she was enjoying me being able to be home a little bit more, and taking the kids to their doctor's appointments and all the flexibility that comes along with starting out a business like that. You're not really busy all the time. So yeah, I just kind of dove into it and stuck to it and got started. And it was rough that first. It's still rough. We're only 2 years in business, but yeah, that first, there's a lot of, okay, we're going back to work now.
Yeah.
And then then the phone starts ringing and you're kind of back at it, and just kind of cruising. So yeah, that's kind of my background in it and how I got started. So
Man, that's awesome. And I think one thing I wanted to highlight, it's interesting that you said ADHD, right? I was doing a call a while back and talking to a bunch of handymen, and I think it's a lot of us handyman, right, have been labeled one way or another as ADHD growing up, right? Like we didn't do very good in school, but then we all kind of have similar stories. But then when we got into like a vocational class where we could actually do some work with our hands or start taking things apart, that's when we started excelling. So it's kind of interesting to see like how the handyman persona, like we all have kind of similar things, in common, and it's just very interesting to hear that more and more from you even. I'd love to hear a little bit about like, so here now you're almost 2 years into this business. How have things changed for you as far as your thought, uh maybe some difficulties that you've been having in business, and kind of like what's that look like right now? Is like, when you first started this thing, how did you imagine it going, and how is it going now? And like, do you have any like different ideas for it than you did 2 years ago?
oh gosh, absolutely. It's all kind of trial and error. I like to say, when I was doing industrial maintenance, I always had a crew. I always had a team, of guys. Somebody was always more experienced, and I could lean on them for, hey, how do you do this machine, or what happens when you do this, and you don't, when you're in your business, you don't. You got YouTube and the Handyman Success podcast. So you're kind of on your own like that. So having to learn to kind of just trust in myself, trust in the foundation that I'm building, the foundation that I built, I think, was super important. Of course, I always felt like the biggest problem was lead flow, right? Like the phone's not ringing enough. There's not enough revenue coming in. So I think that's one thing that you kind of just got to trust. And it took a long time for me to realize, like, the phone's going to ring eventually here. It's gonna go off. You're going to get work. Especially in the beginning, that was a big thing. When I got laid off, it was in November, and that was that's the beginning of the slow season. I found out that
Mhm.
people don't really start rocking and rolling until spring on a lot of stuff, and so that winter was pretty tough. Being slow. I think gutter cleaning. I think I've never cleaned more gutters in my life than that time, and that's kind of what kept us afloat, was keeping people's gutters out.
Hmm.
Um, but over the last 2 years, I think just practicing. Every time you have downtime, what I've done is, if I don't have a job lined up for a day or something's, slow times, that's a perfect opportunity for me to work on the business, which is start researching more marketing, start learning how to do some trades better. Um, you know, and one thing that I got was door hangers a while back, and it's like, okay, I'm out for a day, so let's go walking. I mean, you can hit like 100 houses in an hour and a half, just by hitting door hangers on in neighborhoods you want to work in. So that's what I do when I'm kind of slow like that.
Man, I
Uh,
love it.
yeah. And yeah, just kind of slow down and enjoy it. I
Mhm.
think that was a big thing for me too, is, my gosh, I'm not making any money today, or, and it's like, I think I mentioned this to Alan a while back, is I got to go to all my kids' softball games and got to be
Yeah.
involved got to be a lot more involved in their schooling and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So just enjoy the ride, and enjoy it when it's slow, because it's gonna pick up. That's, kind of my attitude there for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it's all about. That's what
there's a
it's all about.
couple.
Go ahead, Jason.
There's a couple things I just wanted to highlight there too, that I appreciate you sharing, Cody. Like, firstly, I don't know if we've ever clearly stated on the podcast, but the slow season is real.
Mhm.
It's around Thanksgiving, mid-November, and it runs through January, February, March, and it really depends on a couple factors. One, where you're located. Like, we work with some folks. Actually, shout out to Charlie. He was on our podcast. He's up in the Dakotas. I think he's in North Dakota, and it stays pretty dang cold and snowy until March, April, May. And so colder areas with lots of snow, it's going to be slower for longer periods of time. So anyone that's just starting or in business, that slow season's real. Where you're located matters, and also your reputation, your previous clientele, the hustle. Like I love how you said the gutter cleaning. When you're slow, like don't feel bad and like kind of wallow in that, but take action. Action is the biggest cure to anxiety. And so, when you're anxious, I'm slow, I don't know how to pay my bills, like, get out there and start marketing door hangers. PJP Handyman, he was our first podcast episode. He
Yep.
is huge into, like, when he had some office time, I know he's got technicians that work for him, or it's downtime, he would get his flyers and get his dog in his car and just drive around and hand those puppies off. So anyway, I love your attitude with that, Cody. One quite, I guess, if you don't mind too, let's like take a quick pause here and let's give a snapshot for our listeners of kind of where you're at now. So we've kind of covered a little bit like it's not easy starting a business. It takes a lot of hustle, a new business hustle. If you don't mind sharing kind of like where, like this year, like what's your revenue goals for this year? Like how is that stacking up so far? And if you have any numbers from your first 2 years here, just to give our audience just a little snapshot number wise, of kind of where we're at. We can kind of go from there. I know you've got some things to say as far as minimums and just more detailed pricing stuff that we can share and talk about. So if you don't mind, kind of give us a little snapshot of where you're at, just to put some stakes in the ground number
Yeah,
wise.
definitely. I think what helped so much was those books that Alan wrote, and listening to this and guys talking about sticking to their pricing. Because you in that slow season, when you're putting your estimates out there with your price that you need to charge to stay in business, and you get some people that, hey, they're not willing to pay that price, and I think just putting that, when I said foundation, that's kind of what the foundation is sticking to your prices. And, I could be as busy as I want if I go out there and work for 20 bucks an hour, and that's just not sustainable. So I think the first year, let's take it from like August to December of that first year, I think we did like 18,000. Of course, some of that was part-time, and but doing that with the actual hour, that was before I was tracking my billable hours, but just kind of looking at the snapshot of it, I was like, this can be successful. Like if these, if we get this amount of hours, billable hours, this is going to be fine. We're going to be okay. And I think that slow season definitely hits though, and that's when those thoughts start creeping in, like, okay, we're going back to work. But then that March, April hits, and you're kind of off and rolling. I mean, I remember guys talk about, oh, I'm booked out for 2 months on these small handyman jobs, and I'm like, man, how's this guy getting his work? It's February, March. I don't it's just not happening for me. And I think maybe last year at some point, or yeah, last year, the first year, I got to a point where, oh my gosh, I have a whole week booked. Like I have a whole week of work booked. This has never happened before, And I think that's when it kind of starts, you start missing kind of that slow time a little bit, because you're like, pretty soon you've worked for 1 week, 2 weeks straight, and you're falling behind on your marketing, you're falling behind on calls, and you're starting to get that feeling. So I think the first year from January to December that we were in business, we did $90,000 in revenue. I mean, to me, I had lofty goals. I'm thinking I'm going to be at 200,000, by the end of the year. Because, you hear all these other stories, and nobody's story is exactly the same. And that $90,000, a lot of it goes back into your business, buying the tools that you need. I was so lucky to find a truck. I was working out of my Toyota Highlander that doubled as my family car that we would go take the kids to practice it. So I'd have to unload my ladders and tools and all that stuff out of that. And the way I was working it, I worked a profit first system partway through that year. So I started basically paying myself roughly half of what we brought in. So that year I paid myself about $40,000 to $45,000. And that was the lowest amount of money I'd made in a while, in a long time. And that's just the reality of it. Working industrial maintenance, you can make a pretty good amount of money, especially with overtime. But then at the end of that year, I look back at my billable hours that I had, and I think I had like it was like maybe 630 or something like that without the exact numbers in front of me. So you do $90,000 off of 600 something hours like that billable, that, and if you're looking at a year, 2,080 hours, which is, the goal. I mean, you're
Right.
you're totally like, wow, this can work. And that's those numbers. So I'm always trying to take the positives out of that. This year, this spring just took off for us, man. I mean, I had a whole month booked, and it's the same feeling as when you get that first week booked. You're like, okay, we're rocking and rolling, and it is good. You're busy, you're stable, but I remember there's a slow season and it's coming. So it's just been, kind of stashed away for that, cash stashed away for taxes, profit investments back into the business, whatever it may be. So this year already, we are at just under 80,000 for the year, and this is only July. So I think my revenue goal this year, it was a 150. I'm confident we're going to hit that. We need to pick up some work and keep pushing. But yeah, $150,000 total revenue I'm a one-man show for the most part. If I need help, my dad, I usually have, if I have a job that's two people, my dad will come out and help me out and stuff like that, on a Friday. He usually has Fridays off of his job. So yeah, that's the revenue goal here. Yeah,
Man.
what else? Yeah, sorry, I was kind of rambling on there.
That's absolutely awesome, Cody. A few things I wanted to highlight from kind of what you said is I think the overarching theme of, who you are in the slow times is who you are in the busy times. And I think that's so important to remember is that you need to know your numbers. You need to do your math. You need to figure out what you need to charge, and you need to stick to that. Because if you don't stick to that when times are slow, you're just going to be running your wheels and not actually making any money when times are busy. So I think it's important to definitely know what's going on, right? And then I love how you said, you look back and you looked at your billable hours. I think that's one of my biggest mistakes when I first started out. I remember my first year, I went to pay taxes and my CPA said, "Well, how much money did you make this year?" And I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "Well, how much money did you spend this year?" I'm like, "I don't know." Like I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't track anything. So I didn't even have any kind of records to look back and be like, how many billed hours did I work this year? I have no clue. So I think that would be my one piece of advice. And I'm so glad that you did that right out of the gate, Cody, is track, track, track. What you track grows. And if you want your income to grow, start tracking it. If you want your efficiency to grow, start tracking it through creating KPIs focused on build hours and things like that. So I think that's so huge. Just wanted to commend you for that. I think that's so awesome. Something that I wish I would have done in my first years, but like quite literally, like that's what urged me to write all the books that I wrote is that so I could help people out like you. And it brings me hope that you grabbed that stuff and you went right out of the gate with applying that knowledge. I think that's so awesome. And I just wanted to, yeah, that's really awesome. So I think that's really great. And if anyone takes anything out of these podcasts, man, I would hope that it would be start tracking things, track everything. I remember recently, we just had a baby about 2 months ago, and we decided it was time to potty train our son, who is about two or so. And so the way that we did it is I was like meticulous, and I tracked everything. I tracked every time he went to the bathroom. I tracked every time he didn't go on the toilet. Right? We tracked everything, and I had notes all over the house. And my wife thought I was crazy, but it really helped us get an understanding of what the flow of things look like, right? And then we start understanding like, okay, we need to make him go to the bathroom every 20 minutes or whatever it is. So what you track grows, and I think that's just so important. And I just want to say good job on that, Cody. And I think that you got a bright future simply because you are tracking things. You know what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's hard though sometimes. Like when you start getting busy, being a one-man show by yourself. I mean, I'd get home from work and I'm trying to track and sometimes, let it go today, let it go today. And then you
Yeah.
come up on a Friday or Saturday and you're sitting there for several hours tracking. So
Right.
I think what's important is to find a system that works for you and your time. I'm a pen and paper kind of guy, and I know there's like 1,001 apps and Excel programs and stuff like that that would probably be so beneficial. But I just never had that. I never got into that. I'm always a pen and paper. I've got books that I use that say my numbers on them and stuff like that. And that's an ongoing thing,
Mhm.
I think you could come back every month, you could come back every week, really, if you're that dedicated to make sure your numbers were right that week, and that's kind of what I was doing for a little bit. It starts taking up a whole lot of time, um,
Yeah.
which is when you start needing help, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got
I
a,
think
oh, sorry, go
uh,
ahead, Alan.
I remember when my one of my jobs back in the day, I was a head mechanic on a farm, and I was helping out with the farm operations. And one thing that my boss always had us do, which was like I always thought was crazy, and I'm like, why are we doing this? We had to track everything. Like when we hopped into a truck, we had to write down what time and date and then the mileage that we get to each location. And same with when a tractor, we hop on a tractor, we got to write down the tractor hours, we got to write down what the time and what the date is and what we're doing and what field we're in. And I thought it was crazy, but now I understand it, right? It was all tracking. And really, that was a system that my boss had created for us to basically do the tracking for him. And that's ultimately what we need to do, especially when we're looking at hiring employees, is creating systems so that the people will do these things just naturally, right? Like one quick little thing that we do is we use this picture organization app called Company Cam. And every time our employees get gas, we have them take a picture of their mileage and a picture of the gas meter once they're done filling up with gas. So we have all that information documented. So that's basically one form of tracking in that regards. But I think that's what it's all about. I know that Jason, you had a question. So
Yeah, well, one takeaway that I kind of cracked me up internally was from Alan was we all have to potty train our businesses.
That's it.
Like,
yeah.
just track it. If you're one thing that I've learned over the years is like if I think of like I should like keep track of that or I should note that. There, just pull up your phone. Google has Google Keep, Apple has Apple Notes, and just start right there. It doesn't have to be complicated and it'll grow from that. It'll blossom. So if you're overwhelmed about tracking and don't know where to start, that's totally fine. Everyone's been there. Just at least just start taking a note and it'll develop into ultimately, like Alan's example, the company can, but we got to potty train our businesses so we can really start to understand and create a schedule, right? And understand
Yeah.
what we're doing. Um,
Yeah.
one thing that you touched on, Cody, that I'd love to just kind of get your perspective, and for our listeners is, um, when it comes to time allocations and doing admin work, booking jobs. I know just from our conversations over the years, just recently that you have like Monday mornings blocked out to do certain things. I'm sure some of it revolves around family. If you don't mind kind of just giving us your perspective on how do you manage your time as a business owner, as a husband, as a father of three kids, how do you keep it all organized and on track now to like you're already at revenue levels basically from last year? Like how are you managing your time? I know a lot of people struggle with getting around to doing everything.
Right. It starts early in the morning. For me, on the weekdays anyways, I'm up at like 4:30 and kind of, get some coffee in me and I hit the gym. And then once I get back from the gym, it's time to get the kids up for school. So kids get up, get ready for school, get them to school at 8 o'clock. And then that time between 8 and my first job, I usually try to schedule my first job at about 10 a.m. for every day. And sometimes it doesn't work out like that. You get pretty busy, you gotta push that time a little earlier or a little later, however that works out. But yeah, usually that time in between 8 and 9:30, whenever I have to hit the road, is kind of admin time. That's when I'm going back and returning calls or looking through texts and stuff like that to kind of stay on top of that, responding to people. It used to be, oh, my phone's ringing, I gotta grab it. Oh, hey, sorry, I'm with the client. Excuse me, sir, let me answer my phone. And I think that's really unprofessional. So I kind of stopped doing that. And being able to have a system, I don't know if I'm your system that I've been using has been super helpful, where all the messages and stuff like that kind of come into one. That's been super helpful to get back to people as. And then in the evenings it used to be like that as well. It's like, okay, I'm scrambling to kind of get through the day, and it's like that's kind of family time, especially when softball's going on and stuff like that. Kids got to get to practice or a game at 5:30. So you just try to balance it as best you can. I get some looks from my wife sometimes when I'm on my phone, and she's like, "Are you working, or are you just looking at your phone?" And it's like, "No, I'm working right now." She's like, "Sure." So
Yeah.
I think setting that time is super important. And I think I heard maybe Alan say at one time, is the clients that are blowing your phone up at 8 o'clock at night, might not be the type of clients that you want to work for anyways, because, unless it's an emergency, you know what I mean? So yeah, I just try to keep my business hours between 8 and 5, whether that's admin time or work time, as best as possible. That's taking practice too, because you could continue to work into the wee hours of the night sometimes. I'm sure you guys will know. So just take some practice to kind of, you're going to get back to that client. You're going to, that estimate will get sent out. Like, it's just, the time management like that is definitely taking some practice for sure. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end
One
of the
thing.
day, I
Oh,
think
sorry, go
that's
ahead, Alan.
I think that at the end of the day, that's what's most important is making your business work for you, and if your clients don't understand that, then that's okay, right? There's other fish in the sea, as they say. And so I think it's important to remember that like, what's the most important thing in life, right? Is it your business? I wouldn't say so, I would say your family is definitely more important than that. Obviously, you need your business to pay the bills, so there is some variance in that, and you kind of have to figure that out and what that looks like for your own particular self. But I think you're spot on that your family has to come first, and if your client is just, like, pounding on you to get this estimate, and you need to be there for your son because he's sick, like, and you
right.
end up losing that estimate, so be it.
Yeah,
At the end of the
exactly.
day, that's what it is. And that ultimately is creating boundaries. Some clients you just don't want to work for. And sometimes when you lose clients, it's almost the best thing that could happen.
Right.
You know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a great encouragement. Like Cody, like that you're an example of, like, you're growing your business, you're like kind of crushing your goals this year, and it takes time. You built up reputation to do that, right? It's not an overnight thing. But when you create those boundaries, I think some people are scared to do that. I'm personally super passionate on of healthy work-life balance especially when you have a family, and you realize when you create those boundaries that you're doing just fine. Like the business runs just as well. You're growing, you're meeting your goals. You just now have these clear boundaries of business time and family time. So my encouragement to everyone is, once you get to a certain level of traction, really start to look at that, create those boundaries. You'll be pleasantly surprised that, oh, wow, I didn't need to answer that call at 8 p.m. I could totally call them tomorrow. And acknowledging too, when you first start, there's the hustle, man. Like, you got to get things off the ground. You got laid off. Like, that's going to require a lot more labor hours, right? A lot more hustle, like some late nights. That's part of the game. That's when you start a business. But at a point when you get traction, creating those boundaries, you're going to be a better leader for yourself, your business, your family. So I commend you for setting up those boundaries, and you talking about your revenue numbers, your goals, and taking care of your family. You go to the gym, man, with 3 kids and a business. Round of applause there. You're a good testament to the boundaries, and that you can have this healthy work-life balance and still have a growing business that's meeting your goals.
Right. And it's like, that's something that's always happening, right? You're never going to be perfect at all that stuff. So I think just kind of getting your pattern down, and once you can trust your business, I guess you could say, you could trust that the calls are going to come in, that you don't have to answer every call, even if it's after 5 o'clock. There's a little bit of trust for me anyways, there was trust that needed to be built, where I'm like, okay, like, it's going to be okay. I don't have to do this kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Absolutely. So you kind of talked a little, like you kind of briefly mentioned like gutter cleaning in like the like when things were slow, the slow season, it's a more popular service. But if you don't mind talking about what are your focus services? Um, have those changed over the years? I know we get a lot of questions in the Facebook groups, and just from our community of, like, what services should I offer? What are most popular? What are most common? If you don't mind kind of shedding a little light on your focus services, how those have transitioned over time, maybe even segueing into your contracting
sure,
license
sure.
there.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it starts off. I'm sure, as everybody, at least in California, knows, that there's a limit on 500 per job, and it's a super gray area with what you can and can't do. And so our focus has always been on those types of smaller jobs, small paint jobs. Gutter cleaning is actually probably our most profitable, but it's also really taxing on the body. I mean, climbing up on somebody's roof or moving a ladder around like that is definitely, you know, it's hard on the body. So we do offer gutter cleaning. Maybe by next winter we don't have to. I'm kind of hoping, but that's probably our most profitable service as well. But yeah, just your basics. You know, we do ceiling fans, faucets, little bit of finished carpentry, some dry rot repair if it's small enough. Yeah, just a kind of the, you know, Ring cameras seems to be a big one, or light fixtures of any type. So just the small stuff. And I think over this slow season, I knew I was expecting it this year. Okay, so January we're not going to be very busy, and so I thought, well, I'm going to start focusing on my contractor's license here in California. They have a license called the B2, which is a residential remodeling license, and it's also kind of called the handyman license, they'll call it. And what it allows you to do is lift that $500 cap on jobs, you know, and you're basically aiming for remodels is what it's doing. You can't do anything structural, so no load bearing structures or walls or anything like that, building. So you can't build a house from the ground up. But I really put a lot of energy and focus into that. And my plan was, before everything gets busy this spring, I'm going to be done and ready to rock and roll on that. And, you know, we also changed our business from a sole proprietorship to an S corp during that time. And it all rolled into the busy season. So that's when I was juggling. I mean, I'm studying for these tests that they give you. I signed up for a school that, you know, that has classes and stuff, and the books that they give you and whatnot. And yeah, so this spring was just extremely busy with studying and work and trying to get that balance back, right? But yeah, the way that I looked at it was, I could stay a little bit busier if I could offer larger jobs like that I was out there for, you know, a few days to a week or whatnot. And that's still kind of up in the air on exactly the services that I'm going to offer with that. We know we're going to take on some larger projects like flooring, painting, baseboards, or whatnot, you know, if somebody needs that, as I've been asked several times. And you're always kind of worried to do that, you know, because you don't want to break the law and you don't want to harm your client in any way and start getting a bad reputation. So there's like a balance between taking on jobs you know you can do and jobs you can't do. So finally passed all the tests, and I'm just waiting on the state of California to send me the license number now. And then after that happens, we're rocking and rolling. We're going to start offering larger services like that, remodels, and you know, in a lot of interior work that people might need. So yeah, that was our plan with that. We could hopefully bring in a little bit more revenue that way as well, more billable hours, I guess is the easiest way to put it, you know, and offer our clients, you know, some of the stuff that they might want. You know, we had our bathrooms done some years ago, and the guys that did it were great. And then, you know, just over the year, you're like, man, did you see how they left that? Or, oh man, is that really what's happening there? You know, and it's kind of like, well, if those guys can go out and remodel stuff, I know that I can. So it's not to, you know, put any bad on there for that, but I just know that it's possible for me to do some decent work that way. So I'm not too scared about that. Yep.
Nice. That's awesome. And just for people listening out there, because I know that there's a lot of handyman in California that are interested in that B2. What does that look like? Because now you said you just switched over your business to a sole proprietor. So do you need to start up a whole nother business with that new name, or are you just doing a DBA? What does that look like?
So we switched to an S corp from a sole proprietorship. So we basically incorporated through the state, which means we kept our name, Seibel Handyman Services. And now that I'm switching my name to Seibel Handyman and Remodel, I can just do a simple DBA at the county. You just go and do a you know, fictitious business name and run it like that. And if you were a sole proprietor, I'm pretty sure you could just do it because my last name is in the business name. I don't have to run that. But because we're a corporation, in order to get checks and advertise like that, it needs to be a fictitious business name of Seibel Handyman and Remodel instead of Seibel Handyman Services Incorporated.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I'd love to hear a little bit about you talked about you just started your business like in the slow season, right? August, September. How did you market your business during those first, you know, couple months during that first slow season? And what are you currently doing to market your handyman business?
Yeah, so you hear so many people, or at least I did, talk about, oh, run straight off referrals. I don't run any ads or anything, and my business is booming. And that's not been the case for me. I mean, we have nothing but positive reviews, and you know, on social media and Google and whatnot. But that's just not been the case. The referrals come in, yeah, but they're not enough to run a business. So you take advantage of all the free stuff first, I think, right? You get your free Facebook business page, you get your Yelp account going. Some guys try to do Thumbtack and whatnot. I've never done the Thumbtack thing, or those pay per lead services, I guess is what you could call them. Basically, just I think Facebook has probably been, when I started, the free Facebook, you know, business page, and then running a little bit of ads on there and kind of playing with it to see how that can work for you. Local groups, of course, it's all free, man. You could just post in those local groups, and you know, and that's kind of how you get some advertising when I was starting off, anyways. Yelp, sometimes Yelp works amazing for some guys. You know, I think it just depends on your area, like many have said before. We've gone down the hole of paying all kinds of money to Yelp, and it's just never really worked out. I think I've bit that bait a couple times on Yelp for us, and I think that's just not one that we're gonna continue to work with. So I think Facebook, Nextdoor is another one that's completely free that you could just kind of start advertising in. When I first started, I was doing a lot of business to business. You know, I'd walk around with a business card, and I still actually have a few doctor's offices and stuff like that that I go do small jobs and stuff like that for, from that time of just kind of walking into a place and introducing yourself, and, you know, letting them know you're starting out your handyman business. We did go to a lot of property management places, and attempted to work with a few of them, and it's kind of never really worked out. I'm not a fan of the net 30 kind of thing, and trying to chase the money down. And so just recently too, probably within the last 4 months, that's kind of my response when I get asked from a property management company is, you know, well, if you guys are on any type of net 15, 30, 45, we're just not interested. You know, I don't have time to kind of chase the money and then go pick up materials for them and not get paid back in a timely manner. It's just not something that we do. I know a lot of guys, you know, might totally go that route and could run their whole business, which is awesome if that's what works for you. With me, it never really did. So yeah, just take advantage of all the free stuff that you can, so you don't have to spend a bunch of money on ads. Google is also, I think Google's probably our #1 thing right now. We're ranked pretty high. We've been in top 3 in our area for quite some time. And between the website that I have and Google Business Profile, that's by far the #1 place that leads come in. And then Facebook is #2. I think over the last few months, Nextdoor has been #3. So that's kind of what I did starting out, and to where it's at today. With that, our ad spend is anywhere between 500 and 1,000 per month. We'll do majority of that on Facebook, some Google local service ads as well in there. And I didn't think I could afford that at first, right? But then I looked back at how much money I was spending on Yelp for nothing almost. And I thought, well, I'll just transfer that into the ones that are kind of working. And that's another thing too, that's you're supposed to track, right? But it gets hard to start tracking that, but when you're by yourself. But that's definitely something to track, is where you're spending your money on ads, I think, for sure.
Yeah, it's the same principle as, you know, what we talked about before, is like just understanding the numbers and the data. I encourage everyone to have a good idea of where your leads are coming from. You can ask them, just straight up ask them how they found you. You can put it on your website for them. There's all different kinds of avenues, because at the end of the day, every market, every business, their marketing mix, there's going to be a lot of similarities between them, but there's going to be uniqueness too. Like, you know, you mentioned property management. It's just not your jam. That's totally fine. And that's not necessarily marketing so much as your business operation. But you certainly touched on a handful of takeaways I definitely want the audience to know is the fundamentals. Get on Google, get your free profiles, Facebook groups, get a website in place, and then also networking, reaching out to local business owners, doctors' offices. That's just brilliant, man. Those are tried and true strategies in any market. When it comes to the Yelp, you know, paid advertising like Thumbtack, local service ads work pretty much everywhere as long as they're available and you've got the budget to kind of support what's necessary.
Those do get expensive though.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an owner operator, you know, my goal for all the owner operators is, you know, you shouldn't have to spend a heck of a lot of money, if anything, on paid ads. once you build your reputation, you get your Google reviews up, you get some referrals, your repeat business, it's all about reputation. To me, that's the biggest, most important thing people need to focus on in marketing is not so much, oh, I need to try spending money here. I need to try that. I need to start posting on Facebook. It's like all that's important. And it all feeds into this bigger foundational thing of you need to build a reputation because that's what's going to carry you through the slow season too. And that's why the first slow season is the hardest. You don't have a reputation. So anyway, man, thanks so much for sharing kind of your marketing journey. It evolves as you grow, but you've certainly hit all the fundamentals that work everywhere. And so I encourage everyone to just follow what Cody's done and just keep your head down when it's slow. Figure something else out. Add something else to the equation.
Yeah, I'd like to add something too to that. You touched on networking and like you talking business to business, but as soon as you said networking, it reminded me. I've reached out to so many other handymen in my area and contractors as well to kind of see, if they'll share some stuff with me. Some people do, some people don't. Some people never call you back, and that's whatever. But I got to give a shout out to John from Potter's Handyman Service down there in Tracy. I've probably talked to that guy every day. Just, we share a lot of stuff about what works because his area is kind of similar to mine. He's not too far away. We're in the same county, but on opposite sides of it so that we don't really clash, And definitely, he's kicked me work up here in Lodi. I've kicked him work down there in Tracy. But just seeing where he's at in his business, what he's done, if you could get somebody like that you can kind of bounce stuff off of, I think is huge in the same industry as you. I have a meeting today with a contractor around here that does a lot of structural work. So that's something I'm not going to be offering. So we're not going to directly be in competition or anything like that. But he's more than willing to have me out there today at noon on a job to kind of show me some stuff that he's done. And I'm excited to get to kind of talk to him about his business and whatnot. Another thing that worked really well for me for marketing was a BNI group, or, I'm not with the Chamber of Commerce, but I know that's kind of similar. Get into a BNI group. It sounds pricey at first, but there's a lot of good people you'll meet in there. And what I took from it was instead of the referrals, that they give you in BNI is just kind of, that's where I found my tax person at. That's where I found my accountant at. That's where I found another contractor that helped me out so much with certain stuff. So if anybody's listening and you're just starting out, look into your local BNI group. I think that's going to be pretty key to getting you some wings under you when you're starting out.
Yeah,
Spot
one
on.
thing I'd add to that real quick is the Chamber of Commerce is really it's a lot of great jobs and relationships to be had there. And this whole networking thing speaks to the idea of that like people want to work with other local people.
Yep.
They want to refer you local contractors that don't have punch list services or handyman services. They need referrals. Just getting out there, you cannot beat the value of a handshake and a personal relationship.
Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. Cody, I'd love to hear a little bit about your pricing journey and kind of what's that look like. Like when you first started out, in August of 2022, what did you start charging? And we all got that first starting kind of low number, but what did you start charging and when did you first bump it up and what are you charging now? Like if you kind of just give us a lay of that pricing journey.
Sure. Yeah. So I think a big part of the foundation, and I'm so grateful that I had information to fall back on, like your book and other people's stuff that was on the internet at the time about pricing and what it costs to run a business and a billable hourly rate. I think when I started off, I think it was I couldn't fathom charging more than $50 an hour. There's no way anybody would pay more than that, and you find out pretty quickly. I think it was my first job that I never work hourly. We try not to do anything time and materials or anything like that. We've always kind of bid the project. And if I underbid, so be it, and then sometimes if you overbid, they don't take it. And that's just all part of the learning experience in this. So I think when I first started out, before I had any overhead, after that initial job or two for the $50 an hour, it was up to 75. And then, got a little bit busier and just you start running your numbers and saying, okay, if I'm only getting, 60 hours a month, if I'm only getting 60 billable hours a month, then the only answer is to, if you're not getting, if you can't get more leads right away, that's kind of at the whim of the universe is when your leads come in, right? But what you can do is charge accordingly to kind of keep where you're at. And I think right now we're at about 125 an hour what we
Okay.
try to do to bill out. And that is, you know, I think a safe number for us right now in our area. I think it's definitely probably on the higher side, and that's okay. That's just kind of what we need to charge. You know, I've heard before if somebody says, well, a handyman shouldn't be able to charge more than $40 an hour,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of handymen that do, and that's, you know, I think that's the difference. I like to say we're a Seibel Handyman Services. We're an actual business. You know, I'm not just
Yeah.
a guy going out here for a 30 pack to, you know, to help you fix your door or something like that. You know, we show up in clean vehicle, clean work clothes, and, you know, and our hats and stuff like that. So I think
Mhm.
a degree of professionalism warrants that, you know, and I think once people see what you're capable of and the type of work that you do and, you know, your professionalism, pricing doesn't usually seem to be an issue. I don't think.
Yep. I love it. I love it. And just a few notes there for the people listening. You know, there's a great Facebook group out there that Cody's a part of, and he's referred a lot to it. You could get a lot of great information from other handyman called the Handyman Journey Mastermind group on Facebook. There's also another great one that we're all in is the Handyman Success Mastermind group on Facebook. Those two groups will be super powerful kind of when you are looking at your pricing journey and getting started into the handyman industry. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, shout out those two groups.
Yeah, those are like live resources. Like, there's questions every day about pricing and other business stuff. It's a live resource. Alan's done a wonderful job at building the culture of the community. I see posts all the time. It's just the most positive, helpful group
Really,
on Facebook,
it
and I know
absolutely is.
Cody, I appreciate your commitment, and you're just a huge resource to all the other guys in there too that are starting out. And I see you chime in there all the time with great information. So please feel welcome to join those. It's a really great community. Question related to the pricing, Cody, is what are the most important things you think that you do to justify charging an above average market rate that you can confidently be like, yeah, we're not $40 an hour. You mentioned already a few things as far as like being professional, clean, etc. But if you don't mind fleshing out that subject just a little bit more, as far as any other specifics that come to mind that hopefully people can pick up and maybe add to their business to be like, I'm not charging enough, but how can I start to charge more and have and carry that weight?
I think you sit down and you look at if you've got this part done, your core values and stuff like that of your company, and, you know, everybody, all of us want to have integrity and professionalism and quality. Of course, everybody's going to say they've got quality, which is, you know, true in the eye of the beholder, I guess you could say. But to put yourself outside of that, I think being available. You know, I can't hear. I don't know how many times a client has said, "Oh, I had a guy that used to do all kinds of work for me, and he said he was going to be here, and then he never shows up." And, you know, just show up on time. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I found is you show up 10 minutes early is what we usually do. So you show up 10 minutes early, and if, you know, there's ever a problem with something you've done at somebody's house, make that a priority to get back there to take care of that. Don't leave them on the back burner. You know, you're going to run into stuff like that. You're going to have mistakes where you know, you're going to lose money. It's just kind of part of the business, you know, and you could either take that money that you got paid and not return their calls and kind of ghost them, or you could do what you would want, you know, do what you'd want somebody to do to you, is come back and take care of the issues that they have, you know. And I also think when you charge, you know, a above market rate or slightly above market rate is, I think you avoid a lot of clients like that. You know, you avoid a lot of people that are, you know, out to maybe get one over on. I'll tell a story. We had a plumber come out. I was working. We got a new dishwasher, and my wife says, "Oh, they're going to do it for $150 or something like that." And I said, "Oh, cool. Have him put it in. That way I don't have to do it when I get off work." You know, this is several years ago, and so I guess she said Lowe's came, they couldn't do it because they don't have something, you know, Lowe's can't do it. Okay. She says, well, I called the plumber guy and he says he could come over here and do it for $200. Yeah, that's fine. Have him come over. And, you know, so he gets there and he's messing with the thing, and you can tell he's having a little bit of trouble, but I'm just kind of letting him do his thing. And we get our dishwasher installed, and we ask him the total, and it totals just for $390. And I'm thinking that's not that's not $200, you know. And so I've made that like a point of what I do is if I tell a client a price in my estimate that, you know, that price doesn't go up. If I've misestimated, that's a learning lesson for me. But I think I'll never call that plumber back again. I won't refer him. You know, it just kind of goes like that. So just be there for your clientele, be a professional and treat people how you'd want to be treated. I think that's what justifies us to be able to charge what we charge.
Yeah, I think the one takeaway there is like consistency in your character. And I can't remember if it was you or Alan that kind of alluded to that of like, you know, how you show up in your business in the slow season and the busy season. I think you said that, Cody, earlier, but it just underscores his character. That as you grow too, when you hire technician, helper, phone person, whatever that looks like, you know, your character is going to trickle down to your team, and it trickles to your family, it trickles to your clients, and it's contagious whenever it's really positive, and in the same way it's contagious when it's negative. So I just something I pulled. You've got great character, man, showing up consistently, and character is sticking to your estimate as well, and recognizing when you misprice something. You know, you kind of eat
Right.
that and learn from it.
Gotta eat that. You got to.
Yeah. I know we're going to be wrapping up here. One little plug I want to make is that Cody, you are using our kind of like beta test of Handyman Champion. I know you're using the messaging system.
The secret's
One,
out. I got in trouble for saying that before. I felt like
yeah. Well, and I just want to call it out because it does relate to the professionality as far as like, you know, being an owner operator. You can't answer your phone all the time. You're in the field, you're with your family. The missed call text back feature. So if you miss a call, you know, we're going to automatically send a text message that lead right from the system. If you don't mind taking a little minute, not to put you on the spot, man, but I know you've shared a lot of great feedback with us, but how does that tie in like that to kind of, you know, be that professional grade handyman that can carry these above average market rates? Like, is that helpful in that endeavor?
oh man, I've been waiting for this for a while because I don't know if I can, you know, I know you guys are still in the beta testing of it and stuff, but that app has been a lifesaver. It's very helpful when you're trying to return messages to clients. It makes it seem that, you know, even if it is 5 o'clock is, hey, and it's clearly an automated message, but they got something back, you know, and having all your messages in one spot, your emails, your texts, your Facebook messages, your website chat is just been so helpful to be able to open one app on the phone and you know and try to get back to the prospective clients or for, you know, or whoever's called you. So yeah, definitely been a big help. I can't wait till you get it out there all the way so other people can kind of see what it's all about. I know you guys have a CRM in it as well, but even just that part has been extremely helpful to my business in this last, gosh, it's been several months, I think, maybe even, I don't know exactly how long since I started using it, but yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you kind of testing that for us. And I don't want to call out because we will be kind of releasing that in the fall time. So you can head to handymanchampion.com, and we'll have like a little sign up thing just if you're interested so we can let you know. But anyway, man, I don't mean to put you on the spot. It just related to the professionality, and I just appreciate, you know, just sharing like your experience with that, man. So if you don't mind, last question wrapping up here. I know Alan's got to jump off in a minute. Like what are, if you could kind of give your parting advice as far as like someone new or is thinking about starting? I know you've gotten a great story as far as how you started getting laid off and having it kind of part-time, but if you can give some like parting advice to anyone that's new or thinking about starting, like what would you say to a prospective or new handyman business, whether they're struggling or just trying to figure things out?
Right. Well, if you're anything like me, you kind of want stuff right now, right? It's uh looking up to try to build something seems like an extremely daunting task. I know it did for me. And you know, you just take those little wins along the way. I think we said it before we started recording here, you know, business is 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes. So give yourself some grace and understand that this is a journey. That's why it's so perfect. It's called the handyman journey, right? Because it really, really is. Um, and just don't beat yourself up too bad. You know, if you got something going, stick to it. Make sure you understand what works, and when it's not working, be able to call yourself out on that. You know, is that we don't have all the answers. I know I certainly didn't when I was starting, but you need to be able to lean back on people, and it's like that Facebook group you're talking about and stuff like that is extremely helpful for that. So yeah, give yourself some grace. This isn't going to happen overnight. What's the old saying? Rome wasn't built in a day, right? We have world domination on our minds, but it's not going to happen in a couple months. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, man. And I love give yourself some grace. That is a very common encouragement I have for myself and for other people I talk to in business, because things can never go as planned sometimes, and just giving yourself some grace and recognizing it's a journey. And overnight successes are typically like 10 years in the making, decades. And so just keep on course. So Cody, thanks so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate you sharing your story and being vulnerable too, and just sharing the stuff that some people aren't comfortable sharing. I'm sure that this will help a lot of people. And we did shout out the Handyman Success Facebook group. If Cody's not in there, we'll get him in there. So if you have any questions for Cody, please, he's in the groups. I know I can feel confident to speak on your behalf, man. You're just you got a servant's heart, dude. And just appreciate your willingness to help folks out. So thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, friends, that's a wrap of this episode of the Handyman Success Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on your journey in building a thriving handyman business. We would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Whether you learned something new or you're facing challenges that you're just not quite sure how to deal with, we would absolutely love to hear from you. We would love it if you would leave us a review, drop us a comment, or hit that like button telling us that you liked this episode. By doing this, you truly help and support us in creating more of these podcast episodes to help change the handyman industry to something amazing. And I want you to remember that you are not alone on this journey. Jason and I are here to help. If you need anything at all in regards to business or marketing, you can reach out to either Jason or I at handymansuccess.net. You can go over there right now and set up a free consultation call with either of us. We would absolutely love to talk with you. So thanks again for spending this time with us. And until next time, go out and be a blessing.